Welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm going to go over how to display a local time zone based clock that appears in sort of your world or your avatar. I see this a lot in Neos in avatar name badges. It's useful for communicating what your local time is to other people in the world. If the time is late, I maybe tell you to go to bed, and if the time is sort of later on in the evening, maybe I'll ask how your day's going. So it's kind of good to sort of, increase the awareness of the time zones that operate, because Neos is global. So the methodology I see this being used to display this in many name badges and avatars isn't that ideal. I never want to call logics bad or make people feel bad for using particular setups, but I did want to go over why this might be problematic and provide a solution for you. So let's go ahead and take a look, and I'll talk about the problem and then the solution. Let's go ahead and get started. So over here I have a standard setup, which I'm seeing on a lot of avatars for this, and you'll see here we've got a piece of text which is displaying my local time. So it is 11:54 p.m. at night, and I'm recording tutorials because that's a normal thing to do. On the right here we've got the logics for that setup, and it is a user from username here. If this is on an avatar, and I'll show you that in a little bit, we might use getActiveUser or something. And when we've got UTC now, this provides the current time in the UTC time zone, which is basically sort of coordinated universal time. It closely, but isn't exactly, aligns to UK time, and then we're using the toLocalTime node to convert it. We're then using this fireOnChange node to look for a fireOnChange value of that toLocalTime time zone. So every minute this will change because I've updated it. In some cases this will actually change every second, which is where the problem occurs. Because what you're doing here is you're running this fireOnChange of an impulse coming out of it every second, and that will result in a synchronization process between you and everyone else in the world every second. Sometimes I'll see it done a little bit better, where they move the fireOnChange over to the end of the format here. And what that does is it means it will update every minute, because it's now looking for a change in the format node here. For those who are unaware with the format node, or these timespan nodes, or this set date time node, timespan isn't here yet, there are links in the video description to other videos about this. I'll go over things briefly. I've covered those two nodes. We'll cover the format node next. The format node takes in this input, has a formatting string, and trust me, I don't expect you to remember this. It will be in the video description, along with a link to some documentation on how to format these strings later. This one here just says, give me the hour in 2-digit form with a colon, and then give me both minute digits, and then TT stands for AM or PM, so that's displaying there. So when this format string changes, we fireOnChange and we write to the text of this text object. So again, that fires every minute, and that causes a data synchronization every minute to update it. Now this isn't that bad. If you're doing fireOnChange on the actual local time, that's a lot worse, because you're doing it sort of every second. If you pull out a display node for the toLocalTime, you'll see every second that this updates, it would cause a fireOnChange. There might be milliseconds involved there too. I'm not quite sure on the internals, in which case it'll be firing every millisecond, which is a lot of data going through Neos. So let me cover how to do this the better way. I'll also cover how to set up everything from scratch, and we'll go over how we are from scratch. So I just wanted to show the existing setup here. Now we'll build one from scratch. Additionally, I'll show you how to do this so it can work with any avatar name badge, so you can just plop it on and get going. So I'm going to move over to some free space. We'll head over here and we'll get going. The first thing I'm going to need is my left controller to track properly. That's fine, there we go. I'm going to need a piece of text. So I'm going to, with my developer tooltip equipped, I'm going to push the context menu and go to create new text basic. So here's a piece of text that we're going to be using for our text, which will be the clock. I now need to get a logics reference to this. I'm going to go ahead and inspect it by pushing secondary with the developer tooltip and opening up the inspector. Inside the inspector, I'm going to switch to my logics tip, grab the text renderer, move to the right a little bit here and push secondary, and that will get me an interface card for the text here. That's actually all the inspectoring we need to do right now. We'll do a little bit later to pack things up, but now what we can do is just start working on the logics. So first thing we're going to need is the UTC time. I'll show you where that one is. We're going to go ahead and open up the node browser here. We go into input and then UTC now. This just outputs a timestamp. It's called a date time node in Neos. It's just a timestamp of the current time in UTC. If I pull out a ribbon here and push secondary, you'll see that it's 6:58 the following day. I mean, it's very close to the next day because I'm recording these quite late, but it's 6:58 the next day, and that means it's in that UTC time zone, which, like I said, closely aligns to the UK, but actually isn't the UK. It's time zones are complicated. Don't worry about it too much. So we need to convert this into a local time. So let's go ahead and do that. To do that, we'll go back to our node browser. We can go back to the main root of the node browser here. We can go into math, and then we go to date time. Once in date time, look for toLocalTime. Spawn this in the world and connect UTC now to it, and then pull out a display node, and you'll see it's now 23:58, which is actually the time in my local time zone. The problem with this is that this output is local. Other users will see it in their own time zone. This is great for a clock where you don't really care about the time zones. You can just display the current time for everyone, and then they can look at it and be like, hey, yeah, that's the time. And I do see this in a lot of worlds, and that's perfectly fine because it shows you what's going on. But let's say we wanted to show this in my local time zone for everyone in the world. So even if you are in Europe or wherever you want to be, Australia, where it's like probably the end of the 26th, let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to need to do here is start using some unexpected ways that the arithmetic nodes can be used. And I don't blame you for not knowing that these can be done, but let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm going to head over to back and back again. We're going to head to operators, and we're going to spawn a minus node. What we're going to do here is we're going to take the to local time and put it into the top of the minus, and then we'll take UTC now and put it into the bottom of the minus. What this does is it gets us this sort of more pinkish, almost looks like bubblegum output, and this is what's called a time span. If I push secondary on this, you'll see it's -7. This actually happens to be the time difference between my local time and UTC. So you can see here that UTC is 7 a.m. in the morning, and my local time is midnight, just gone midnight. Quite good timing here. So what this gives us is a constant value, which we can write into a variable and use for other display purposes later. So that's what we're going to do. We want to write this time span into a variable. So we're going to go ahead to go back, actions, write, and then back, variables, storage, and then look for time span, again, that bubblegum color at the bottom. And then we can write this value into there. And what I've done there when I just hit pulse is I've written this offset into a variable for effectively the rest of time, the rest of the existence of this particular gadget. What this means is I only need to do this once. I need to do it once, and I need to ensure when I do it that it is written from the perspective of the user whose time zone we want to be showing. There are a number of ways of doing this, including sort of the event nodes, fire on change, fire on true, all sorts of stuff like that, Boolean matches, all sorts of stuff. I found a quite simpler way to do it though, and I want to show you how to do that one. So what we're going to do here is we're going to be using a fire on change node and a get active user node. And this is great because it lines up with that sort of avatar name badge scenario. So go ahead and get that sorted. So what I'm going to do is head back and back again. And I'm going to go to flow, fire on change. Fire on change just outputs an impulse when a value changes. What we're going to be doing here is writing this when this value changes, but we're going to be writing it when a particular value changes, which is actually the same as the user property. So we're going to be using getActiveUser, which just gets the user that is the user which owns the thing that is it's the user which is holding an object, or of which the object is parented to. So if I have something on my name badge, it's parented to me, so I am the active user. So we're going to plug in the active user to both the top and bottom of the fire on change node, and that means, hey, when the user changes, fire on change a impulse as that user. Now we just need to get a property into the getActiveUser node, which is the slot that we're looking at. We're actually going to use the text for this. We'll swap back to our developer tooltip, inspect the text, grab the slot for the text. This is a good tip that I've been advocating for a little while now, which is if you're using getActiveUser, make it as low in the hierarchy as you can go, and then you get portability. Some users here might sort of put the avatar root as the getActiveUser, but then, hey, you've got to change it if you change avatars. But this way, you just have to reparent the Namebadge component, and it will work anywhere with any time zone. So do keep that getActiveUser as low as you can. So I'm going to plug this in. And now what you'll see is that we get a write whenever I grab it. So when I grab this, it's because the active user has been changed. I also write when I let go, but that isn't really that important for name badges or things like that. The reason we're doing it this way is because it's shareable. It's a lot more shareable. If you know it's only ever going to be you, feel free to just go ahead and write this value once and then get rid of the rest of this logics, but we'll be doing it as a sort of shareable, portable thing for the rest of this video. So now I've got that time zone value. When I grab it, it'll be rewritten. I wish I had someone in a different time zone in here to demonstrate this, but let's say, for example, someone in the UK were to grab this. This time span here might change down to 0. I can never remember if the UK is currently daylight savings. Daylight savings is a nightmare, so it might be +1, -1, or whatever, but it'll be closer in the time span here to this UTC time zone, so closer to sort of 7 o'clock. Either way, it'll be the morning rather than middle of the night. So now that we've got that going, it will work whenever anyone grabs it, whatever time zone they're in. The reason we're also doing this is it will cater for daylight savings. Neos will figure it out. When the avatar spawns in, these logics will fire, and it will save that time span into that name badge there for you. And so if the time span drift changes because of daylight savings, or I don't know, there's a random time where one country in particular decided to change their time zone and caused a big mess. Did you know there's also a time zone which adds or minuses half an hour or an hour and a half? I can't really remember. Look into it. It's a lot of fun. So now we've got that, we just need to adjust our stuff which gets that time onto that piece of text. So I'm going to hop over to the right here, go back, go to operators, and then plus. And in this case, we're going to take our UTC time zone again, and we're going to add that time span. Oh, whoops, I missed. So UTC, add that time span, and then out here we get the appropriate time again. So we've effectively here recreated that local time node, but now instead of it being local to just the person reviewing it, it's now global because everyone will see the same thing because we've written this time span node. All that's left to do is plug this into a format node and then chuck it into the text. Let's go ahead and get that done. So we go to string, format, hit a plus here once, plug this output into the bottom of the format. For the top of the format, pull out the input node, hit secondary, and then here we need to type, and I don't expect you to remember this, but I will remember it freakishly. We type open curly brace 0 colon HH colon MM space TT close square brace. Do feel free to pause the video, it'll also be in the video description. If we pull out a display node here, you'll see we get 12:05 AM. We can now plug this format node into text, and then that will update every minute automatically and causes no synchronization and no writes other than the first write here where we changed the user. This is good because all drives, and I will be covering this in some cases later on, all drives, which are these arrows here, they're local, which means there's no calculation, there's no network data involved, unless there needs to be a sort of resynchronization. In some cases they might update, but for the most part here, this entire setup has no network traffic going through. It's all just driven locally, and that's because every single value here is derived from a static source, right? The UTC node is available on everyone's machine. The time span here is available on everyone's machine because we wrote to it when we started, and so nothing needs to traverse the network. So there you go, that is the time displayed there. Let's go ahead and tidy up a little bit, and then I'll attach it to myself, and you'll see how it works as a Namebadge. So I'm going to go ahead, open inspector. Underneath the basic here, I'm going to hit star, which creates a basic child, and then I'm going to rename that to logics. Grab the word logics, set packing route, aim at any of the nodes here. I'm actually going to tidy up a little bit. We don't need any of these display nodes now that we're done. I'm going to hit, oh, got one more display, oh, two more display nodes. Lucky me. There we go. Hit secondary. Secondary here as well. Everything will now pack away. You can get rid of that as too. Well, and now we've got that name badge. So I could, well, it's not a total name badge, it's just the clock for the name badge. I could hand this out to anyone, and the moment they grab it, you'll then show their local time. And if they save it to their avatar, so here I'm going to go ahead and just parent it to my wrist for safekeeping for the moment. Let's go ahead and grab basic, chuck it on my wrist, close everything out, and deselect all. That's now part of my avatar. I could put it in my name badge, I could put it on a wristwatch, or I could put it, on my chest or something. I could do some cool displays with it. I could do some maths based on it. Maybe it's during the day. I could do some maths of that that date time output and turn on some lights on my avatar or what I want. But the point is, it would be local, and that's because we wrote that time difference when it changed its user. That's all I got for you. I know that was a long one, but I did want to explain it fully. So come back next time and we'll talk about hopefully less time zones, because time zones are fun. See you soon. Bye.